The distress signal crackled through the void, a desperate plea from wounded alien girls abandoned in the depths of space. Captain Philip Freeman of the UNS Intrepid stood on the bridge, his jaw set with determination. He'd responded to many calls for help, but never one like this. "All hands, prepare for rescue operations," he commanded, his voice steady despite the uncertainty ahead. The small fleet of human warships under his command moved into formation, weapons primed and scanners sweeping the asteroid-strewn sector. As they approached the coordinates, a battered vessel came into view. Its hull was scarred and breached, atmosphere venting into the vacuum. Captain Freeman's tactical officer reported, "Sir, it's a Vorta ship. Life signs detected, but fading fast." Freeman nodded, his mind racing through protocols and potential risks. "Prepare boarding teams. We're going in." The Intrepid's shuttle bay bustled with activity as Marine squads donned their exosuits. Medical teams stood by, equipment at the ready. Freeman addressed them briefly. "We don't know what we're walking into, but those aliens need our help. Stay alert, stay focused." Boarding the alien vessel was like stepping into a war zone. Emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows across twisted metal and floating debris. The human teams moved swiftly, following life sign readings to a sealed compartment. They found them there, a group of Vorta females, injured and afraid. Their leader, Fenris, stood protectively in front of her companions, her silver eyes wide with a mix of hope and suspicion. "We're here to help," Freeman said, his translator conveying the message. "Your ship is too damaged. We need to evacuate you to our vessel." Fenris hesitated, then nodded. "We accept your assistance, though it pains us to rely on strangers." As the humans began assisting the Vorta to their shuttles, alarms blared. The tactical officer's voice rang out over the comms. "Captain, enemy fleet incoming. ETA, 5 minutes. Freeman's mind raced. They hadn't finished the evacuation. If they left now, the remaining Vorta would surely perish. But staying meant risking his own crew, his ships, in an unknown confrontation. He made his decision in a heartbeat. "All hands, battle stations. We're seeing this through." The Intrepid's medical bay quickly filled beyond capacity. Human doctors worked feverishly alongside their Vorta patients, the universal language of pain and healing bridging their alien divide. In the command center, Freeman briefed his officers. "This isn't just about saving lives," he said, his voice low and intense. "The Vorta have advanced technology we've never seen before. Gaining their trust could be a game-changer for humanity." On the bridge, Fenris watched the humans prepare for battle. She noted their efficiency, their determination. It was both reassuring and unsettling, so different from Vorta military doctrine. As the enemy ships appeared on long-range sensors, Freeman ordered the fleet into a defensive formation around the crippled Vorta vessel. Shields hummed to life, weapons charged with barely contained energy. The human ship stood as a bulwark against the encroaching threat, a testament to humanity's resolve. Captain Freeman stood at the helm, his voice calm as he gave the order. "All ships, hold the line. We fight not just for ourselves today, but for those who cannot fight for themselves." The stage was set. Humanity was about to prove its worth in the crucible of an alien conflict, and the Vorta watched, wondering if they had found saviors or merely delayed their demise. The void of space erupted in a symphony of destruction as the enemy fleet closed in. Captain Freeman's voice rang out clear and steady. "All ships, defensive formation Alpha. Protect the Vorta vessel at all costs." The UNS Intrepid and its escort ships moved with practiced precision, their sleek hulls gleaming as they formed a protective barrier around the battered alien craft. Fenris watched from the bridge, her silver eyes wide with a mixture of awe and trepidation. The first salvos from the hostile force slammed against the human ship's shields, creating a dazzling display of energy dispersal. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper called out from his station. "Shields holding at 92%, sir. Their weapons are powerful, but our defenses are superior." Freeman nodded, his eyes never leaving the tactical display. "Return fire, all batteries. Let's show them what we're made of." The Intrepid's weapon systems came to life, lancing out with pinpoint accuracy. Several enemy vessels rocked under the assault, their own shields flickering under the barrage. In the medical bay, Dr. Sarah Rice worked feverishly to stabilize her Vorta patients. The ship shuddered violently as it took a direct hit, causing the artificial gravity to fluctuate. Medical equipment clattered to the floor, and injured Vorta cried out in alarm. "Everyone stay calm," Dr. Rice shouted, gripping the edge of a biobed to steady herself. "Nurse Chen, secure that oxygen canister. Ensign Park, help me with this patient." The medical team scrambled to adapt to the chaotic conditions, their dedication evident in every movement. A young Vorta female looked up at Dr. Rice, fear evident in her alien features. The doctor placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We've got you. You're safe with us." Back on the bridge, Lieutenant Commander Harper's voice cut through the tension. "Captain, I have an idea. The asteroid field, we can use it to our advantage." Freeman turned to his tactical officer, eyebrow raised. "I'm listening, Jack." Harper's fingers flew over his console as he explained. "If we can lure them into the densest part of the field, their larger ships will be at a disadvantage. We can use our superior maneuverability to pick them off one by one." A ghost of a smile played on Freeman's lips. "Make it happen, Commander." The human fleet executed a series of intricate maneuvers, drawing the enemy deeper into the asteroid-strewn sector. Fenris watched in fascination as the smaller human ships danced between the massive space rocks, baiting their pursuers into the treacherous terrain. The plan worked brilliantly. Two enemy cruisers, focusing too intently on their prey, collided with asteroids. Their shields flared and failed, leaving them vulnerable to the Intrepid's precise attacks. "Direct hit on the lead vessel," Harper called out. "Their power grid is destabilizing." Freeman leaned forward in his chair. "Press the advantage. All ships, concentrate fire on that cruiser." The combined firepower of the human fleet tore through the wounded enemy ship, reducing it to an expanding cloud of debris. The remaining hostile vessels, realizing they had been outmaneuvered, began to retreat. As the last enemy signatures disappeared from long-range sensors, a cheer went up on the Intrepid's bridge. Freeman allowed himself a small smile before turning to his first officer. "Damage report?" "Hull breach on Deck 7 contained by emergency force fields. Minor damage to our port nacelle. No casualties reported, sir." Freeman nodded, relief evident in his eyes. "Well done, everyone. Now let's tend to our guests." He turned to Fenris, who had been silently observing the entire engagement. "Your people are safe now. We'll get you settled in temporary quarters while we assess the damage to your ship." Fenris bowed her head slightly. "We are in your debt, Captain Freeman. Your people have shown great courage and skill. I would like to offer the assistance of our medical technology to treat your wounded." "That's very generous of you," Freeman replied. "I'm sure Dr. Rice will appreciate the help. Speaking of which, I should check on our patients. Would you care to join me?" As they made their way to the medical bay, Fenris couldn't help but notice the interactions between the human crew members. She observed a pair of engineers, a man and a woman, sharing a brief embrace before returning to their duties. The display of affection, so casually given and received, fascinated her. In the medical bay, Dr. Rice was overseeing the treatment of both human and Vorta patients. She looked up as Freeman and Fenris entered, her face showing signs of exhaustion but also triumph. "Captain, I'm happy to report that all our Vorta guests are stable. We had some close calls during that gravity fluctuation, but my team performed admirably." Freeman smiled warmly. "Excellent work, Doctor. Fenris here has offered the use of Vorta medical technology to assist in treating our wounded. I trust you'll find that helpful." Dr. Rice's eyes lit up. "Absolutely, sir. We'd be honored to learn from our new allies." As the two medical professionals began to discuss treatment protocols, Freeman's communicator chirped. "Captain," came the voice of his communications officer, "we're receiving a coded transmission from United Earth Command." "I'll take it in my ready room," Freeman replied. He excused himself, leaving the Vorta and humans to begin their exchange of knowledge and culture. In his ready room, Freeman read the new orders with a mixture of anticipation and concern. Escorting the Vorta to a human outpost would mean an extended journey together, with all the potential benefits and risks that entailed. He'd need to address the crew, prepare them for the challenges ahead. As he made his way back to the bridge to set their new course, Freeman couldn't shake the feeling that this encounter with the Vorta was just the beginning of something much larger. The stars streaked by outside the viewports, a silent reminder of the vast, unknown frontier that lay ahead, and the new allies they had found to face it with. Captain Freeman stood on the bridge of the UNS Intrepid, his eyes fixed on the starfield beyond the viewport. The rescue of the Vorta had been successful, but new challenges loomed on the horizon. He turned to address his senior staff, who had gathered for a briefing on their next steps. "We have our orders," Freeman announced, his voice steady. "We're to escort our Vorta guests to the nearest human outpost. It's going to be an extended journey, and we need to ensure smooth integration between our species." Lieutenant Commander Harper nodded, his brow furrowed. "Sir, have you considered the potential risks of prolonged contact with an unknown alien species?" Freeman's lips tightened. "I have, Jack. That's why I'm assigning Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez as our liaison officer. She'll help the Vorta acclimate to life aboard a human vessel and act as a buffer between our cultures." Rodriguez stepped forward, her posture straight and professional. "I'll do my best, Captain. I've already begun studying the limited data we have on Vorta society." As the meeting concluded, Dr. Sarah Rice approached the captain. "Sir, I've made an interesting discovery during my examinations of our Vorta patients. I'd like to discuss it with you in private." In the medical bay, Dr. Rice led Captain Freeman to a sealed quarantine area. Through the transparent barrier, they could see a group of Vorta undergoing various tests. "Captain, the Vorta possess a unique biological feature," Dr. Rice explained, her voice a mix of excitement and concern. "Their bodies produce a pheromone that can potentially influence the emotional states of those around them." Freeman's eyes widened. "Influence? To what extent?" "We're not entirely sure yet," Rice admitted, "but it could potentially affect decision-making and behavior if exposure is prolonged or concentrated." The captain paced the length of the quarantine area, his mind racing. "This complicates things. We need to implement strict protocols to limit exposure between our species until we understand more about these pheromones." Dr. Rice nodded in agreement. "I'll begin working on a more comprehensive study immediately." As word spread about the Vorta's unique biology, curiosity among the human crew intensified. In the ship's mess hall, Lyra, a young Vorta scientist, observed two human crew members with rapt attention. Ensign James Cooper leaned close to Specialist Olivia Tran, his voice low and teasing. "So, what do you say we grab a drink in the rec room later? I hear they just got a new holodeck program." Olivia smiled, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "I don't know, James. Last time we used the holodeck, you nearly started a war with those simulated Klingons." "Hey, that was a misunderstanding," James protested with a laugh. "Besides, I promised to be on my best behavior this time." Lyra watched their interaction with fascination, her silver eyes darting between the two humans as they exchanged subtle touches and meaningful glances. Unable to contain her curiosity, she approached Lieutenant Rodriguez, who was seated nearby. "Lieutenant, I have observed a peculiar interaction between those two humans," Lyra said, her voice matter-of-fact. "Can you explain the purpose of their verbal and physical exchanges?" Rodriguez nearly choked on her coffee. Well, Lyra, they're engaging in what we call flirting. It's part of our courtship rituals." Lyra's head tilted to the side. "Courtship? For the purpose of mating?" The lieutenant's face flushed as she noticed nearby crew members trying to hide their amusement. "It's a bit more complicated than that. Human relationships involve emotional connections as well as physical attraction." "Fascinating," Lyra said, her eyes gleaming with interest. "Can you provide more details about human mating practices? How do you select partners? What criteria do you use?" As Rodriguez struggled to find an appropriate response, the mess hall erupted in poorly concealed laughter and whispers. The incident quickly became the talk of the ship, with crew members alternating between amusement and discomfort at the Vorta's intense curiosity about their personal lives. Captain Freeman, alerted to the growing tension, called an emergency meeting with his senior staff and Fenris, the Vorta leader. "It's clear we need to address these cultural differences head-on," Freeman said, his tone serious. Dr. Rice, Lieutenant Rodriguez, I want you to organize a cultural exchange seminar. We need to educate both sides about our respective social norms and biological differences. Fenris nodded in agreement. This is a wise decision, Captain. My people are eager to learn about humans, but we must be mindful of the boundaries between our species. The cultural exchange seminar was held in the ship's largest conference room. Humans and Vorta sat intermingled, an air of anticipation filling the space. Dr. Rice took the podium first, activating a holographic display. Let's start with the basics of Vorta biology, she began. As you all know by now, Vorta produce pheromones that can influence emotional states. We're still studying the full effects, but we ask everyone to be mindful of prolonged close contact. Lieutenant Rodriguez stepped up next. Now moving on to social customs. Humans have a wide variety of relationship structures, but most cultures practice monogamous pairing. As the seminar progressed, both species found themselves shocked and intrigued by the revelations. The humans were particularly stunned when the Vorta explained their complex form of parthenogenesis. You mean you can reproduce without a partner? Ensign Cooper blurted out, his face a mask of disbelief. Lyra nodded. Yes, though it is a highly regulated process among our people. We do not procreate indiscriminately. The seminar concluded with a brief Q&A session, but it was clear that both humans and Vorta had much more to learn about each other. In the following days, Lieutenant Commander Harper noticed a troubling trend. Some of the younger male crew members seemed to be paying increased attention to the Vorta females, often finding excuses to be near them or engage in conversation. Harper approached Captain Freeman in his ready room. Sir, I'm concerned about the effect these Vorta pheromones might be having on the crew. I've noticed some behavior that could compromise ship discipline if left unchecked. Freeman leaned back in his chair, a frown creasing his forehead. I was afraid of this. We need to implement new regulations regarding human-Vorta interactions, limited physical contact, mandatory supervision during interspecies meetings. It's not ideal, but it's necessary for now. As the new rules were announced, a wave of frustration rippled through both the human crew and the Vorta guests. The atmosphere on the ship grew tense, with both sides feeling restricted and misunderstood. Sensing the growing discord, Fenris requested a private meeting with Captain Freeman. When she entered his ready room, her silver eyes were filled with drive. Captain, I have a proposal that may help alleviate our current difficulties, Fenris said. My people possess advanced medical technology. If we combine it with your human engineering expertise, we might be able to create a device capable of neutralizing the effects of our pheromones. Freeman's eyebrows shot up. That's an intriguing idea, Fenris. A joint project like that could certainly foster cooperation between our people. As plans for the pheromone neutralizer began to take shape, the ship's long-range sensors lit up with an alarming reading. Lieutenant Commander Harper's voice came over the intercom, urgency evident in his tone. Captain, to the bridge. We've detected a massive ion storm directly in our path. It's unlike anything we've ever encountered. Freeman rushed to the bridge, Fenris close behind. The view screen showed a swirling mass of energy, crackling with vibrant purples and blues. It stretched as far as the eye could see, a beautiful but deadly obstacle. Options, Freeman barked. Harper's fingers flew over his console. We can try to navigate through it, but the risk to the ship is significant. Our other choice is a detour that would add weeks to our journey and strain our resources. Freeman turned to Fenris, his face grave. The longer journey could be dangerous for your injured people. We need to make a decision, and quickly. Fenris met his gaze, her expression unreadable. This decision affects us all, Captain. Perhaps we should consult with both our teams before choosing our path. Freeman nodded, his heart made. Agreed. Call all senior staff and Vorta representatives to the conference room. We have a storm to weather, one way or another. As they left the bridge, the ominous glow of the ion storm filled the view screen, a silent reminder of the challenges that lay ahead for the crew of the Intrepid and their Vorta guests. Captain Freeman's face hardened as he surveyed the swirling mass of energy on the interface. The conference room fell silent, all eyes fixed on him as he made his decision. We're going through, he announced, his voice steady. The risk to our Vorta guests is too great if we take the longer route. Prepare the ship for ion storm conditions. As the crew dispersed to their stations, Freeman caught Fenris's silver gaze. I hope your people are ready for a bumpy ride. Fenris nodded solemnly. We trust in your judgment, Captain. The Intrepid plunged into the storm, its hull immediately buffeted by electromagnetic waves. On the bridge, Harper's fingers danced across his console, adjusting shields and navigational systems to compensate for the intense interference. Artificial gravity fluctuating, he reported, his voice tight. Compensating, but... His words were cut short as the ship lurched violently. Freeman gripped his chair, watching as crew members stumbled and slid across the deck. Through the intercom, he could hear similar chaos erupting throughout the ship. In the medical bay, Dr. Rice braced herself against a biobed as the gravity shifted. Everyone, secure your patients, she shouted, reaching for a nearby Vorta who was beginning to float off his bed. The ship's corridors became a maze of disorientation as humans and Vorta alike struggled to maintain their footing. In one such corridor, Lyra found herself separated from her escort, tumbling through the air alongside a group of injured Vorta. This way, she called out, spotting an open door. The group fumbled their way inside, only to realize they had entered a restricted area, the personal quarters of off-duty crew members. Lyra's silver eyes widened as she witnessed a scene entirely foreign to her. Two human crew members were locked in an embrace, their lips pressed together in what she would later learn was called a kiss. The couple, startled by the intrusion, quickly broke apart. We apologize, Lyra stammered, her usual composure shaken. We were disoriented by the gravity fluctuations. Before the humans could respond, another violent lurch sent everyone sprawling. The Vorta found themselves involuntarily pressed against the humans, their pheromones intensifying in the close proximity. Meanwhile, in the engine room, Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez fought to keep the ship's systems online. Sparks flew from overloaded circuits as he barked orders to his team. Reroute power from non-essential systems, he shouted over the din of alarms. We need to keep life support and propulsion online at all costs. As his team scrambled to comply, Rodriguez didn't realize that his actions had unintended consequences. Throughout the ship, privacy force fields in crew quarters flickered and died, leaving more Vorta exposed to intimate human moments. In the mess hall, now serving as an emergency shelter, humans and Vorta huddled together for safety. Ensign Cooper found himself shoulder to shoulder with a wide-eyed Vorta female. Don't worry, he said, trying to sound reassuring. Our captain knows what he's doing. The Vorta nodded, then leaned in closer, sniffing curiously. Your scent changes when you speak to me. Why is that? Cooper's face flushed, suddenly very aware of the effect the Vorta's proximity was having on him. Well, it's complicated. As the ship neared the edge of the storm, Captain Freeman's voice crackled over the intercom. All hands brace for impact. We're about to hit the worst of it. The Intrepid shuddered violently, its hull groaning under the immense strain. For a heart-stopping moment, it seemed as if the ship might tear itself apart. Then, with a final lurch, they burst free of the storm's grasp. On the bridge, a cheer went up as the swirling energy dissipated on the interface, replaced by the calm backdrop of stars. Freeman allowed himself a small smile before turning to assess the damage. Status report, he ordered. Harper's fingers flew over his console. Multiple systems damaged, sir. Internal sensors are offline, communications are spotty, and we've got reports of Vorta in restricted areas. Freeman nodded grimly. Organize search and retrieval teams. Get our guests back to their designated areas. As the immediate crisis passed, the true scope of the situation began to emerge. Reports flooded in from all decks of cultural misunderstandings and awkward encounters between humans and Vorta. Dr. Rice's voice came over the intercom, tinged with excitement despite her obvious exhaustion. Captain, I've made a discovery about Vorta physiology. The storm seems to have affected their pheromone production. I need to run more tests, but this could be significant. Freeman acknowledged the report, his mind already racing with the implications. He turned to Fenris, who had remained on the bridge throughout the ordeal. I think we need to have a talk, he said quietly. Fenris nodded, her silver eyes unreadable. Indeed, Captain. It seems our journey together has become far more intimate than anticipated. As they made their way to the conference room, Freeman couldn't shake the feeling that they had crossed a point of no return. The ion storm had done more than damage the ship. It had irreversibly altered the dynamics between humans and Vorta. Looking out a nearby viewport, Freeman realized with a start that the stars were unfamiliar. The storm had pushed them off course into uncharted space. As the Intrepid limped along, its systems in disarray and its crew in a state of cultural upheaval, he couldn't help but wonder what new challenges awaited them in this unexplored frontier. Region of space. As the Intrepid limped along, its systems in disarray and its crew in a state of cultural upheaval, Captain Freeman couldn't help but wonder what new challenges awaited them in this unexplored territory. His musings were interrupted by Lieutenant Commander Harper's voice cutting through the bridge's tense atmosphere. Captain, long-range scanners have detected a habitable planet nearby. It appears to be Class M, with breathable atmosphere and abundant vegetation. Freeman leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the console as it displayed the azure orb. That's the first bit of good news we've had in a while. How far? Approximately 6 hours at our current speed, sir, Harper replied. The captain nodded, a plan already forming in his mind. Set a course. We need to replenish our supplies and conduct repairs. This might be our best chance. As the Intrepid and its escort ships entered orbit around the planet, Freeman organized an away team for a reconnaissance mission. Lieutenant Commander Harper would lead the group, which included both human crew members and a small contingent of Vorta volunteers. Lyra, the silver-eyed Vorta scientist, approached Harper as they prepared to board the shuttle. I'm eager to study this world's flora and fauna, she said, her voice tinged with excitement. Our combined expertise could yield fascinating results. Harper nodded, a small smile tugging at his lips. Just remember to follow protocol. We don't know what we're walking into down there. The shuttle's descent started smoothly, but as they entered the planet's atmosphere, turbulence rocked the small craft. Warning lights flashed across the control panel as Harper fought to maintain stability. Hang on, he shouted, gripping the controls tightly. This is going to be a rough landing. The shuttle careened through the sky, finally breaking through the cloud cover to reveal a vast expanse of dense emerald forest below. Harper managed to find a small clearing and brought the craft down with a bone-jarring thud. As the dust settled, Harper ran a quick systems check. The shuttles sustained some damage, he reported. We'll need to make repairs before we can return to the Intrepid. While Harper's team began work on the shuttle, Lyra and a few other Vorta ventured into the surrounding forest. The alien world teemed with life, its flora a riot of colors and shapes, unlike anything they had seen before. Look at this, Lyra called out, her silver eyes wide with wonder as she examined a delicate spiral-shaped plant that seemed to pulse with an inner light. As they pushed deeper into the forest, the group stumbled upon a clearing. At its center stood the crumbling remains of what appeared to be an ancient structure, its weathered stone covered in bioluminescent vines that pulsed with a soft, ethereal glow. Fascinating, Lyra murmured, running her hand along the vine-covered wall. These markings, they almost look like... Her words were cut short as her touch activated something within the ruins. A low hum filled the air, growing in intensity until it became a deafening roar. Pulses of energy erupted from the structure, washing over the Vorta and nearby humans in waves of searing light. Back at the landing site, Harper heard the commotion and sprinted toward the source of the disturbance. He arrived just in time to see Lyra and the others collapse to the ground, unconscious. Lyra! He shouted, rushing to her side. As he reached for her, another pulse of energy struck him, and darkness claimed his vision. Aboard the Intrepid, alarms blared as the ship's sensors detected the energy surge from the planet's surface. Captain Freeman strode onto the bridge, his face a mask of concern. Report, he barked. We've lost contact with the away team, sir, Harper replied, his fingers flying over his console. There was a massive energy spike at their last known location. Freeman's lips pursed. Prepare a rescue party. Dr. Rice, you're with them. We need to... Captain? Harper interrupted, his voice tense. Multiple unidentified vessels approaching at high speed. They'll be on us in minutes. Freeman's mind raced, weighing his options. With a potential threat in orbit and a stranded away team on the surface, he knew he had to split his resources. Launch the rescue party immediately, he ordered, and sound battle stations. Whatever's coming, we'll be ready for it. As the rescue shuttle departed, the unidentified ships arrived, surrounding the human fleet in a display of superior numbers and unknown capabilities. Freeman stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the screen as the alien vessels held their position, neither attacking nor attempting to communicate. "Open a channel," Freeman commanded, "all frequencies." But as the tense standoff continued in orbit, a new crisis was unfolding on the planet's surface. The rescue party, led by Dr. Rice, arrived at the scene to find the away team unconscious and exhibiting alarming physiological changes. "Their hormone levels are off the charts," Rice reported, her voice filled with a mix of concern and scientific curiosity as she scanned the prone forms of both humans and Vorta. "It's as if their reproductive systems have gone into overdrive." As she worked to stabilize the affected individuals, the alien security system pulsed again, forcing the rescue team to take cover. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez, part of the security detail, struggled to maintain order as both humans and Vorta began to stir, their eyes glazed and movements uncoordinated. "Doctor?" Rodriguez called out, her voice strained. "They're waking up, but something's not right." Dr. Rice looked up from her medical tricorder, her eyes widening as she observed the scene unfolding before her. Humans and Vorta alike were gravitating towards each other, their movements driven by some primal, unseen force. "The energy pulses," Rice breathed, realization dawning. "They've amplified the human's pheromone production and intensified the Vorta's natural pheromones. We need to contain this situation before—" Her words were cut short as another pulse emanated from the ruins, causing several of the groggy team members to stumble back towards the ancient structure. As they disappeared into the overgrown building, new alarms began to sound, echoing through the forest. "Rodriguez!" Rice shouted. "We need to get them out of there before more systems activate." As night fell, the forest came alive with bioluminescence, casting an otherworldly glow over the chaotic scene. Lyra, still affected by the pulse but fighting to maintain her faculties, stared at the glowing symbols now visible on the ruins' walls. "These patterns," she mumbled, her silver eyes wide. "They're similar to ancient Vorta texts. Could there be a connection?" Meanwhile, aboard the Intrepid, Captain Freeman received the latest report from the surface, his face growing grim as he absorbed the gravity of the situation. With potential hostile forces in orbit, an ancient alien technology running amok on the planet, and his crew caught in a biochemical perfect storm, he knew the next few hours would be critical. "Mr. Rodriguez," he called to his chief engineer, "I need you to begin work on a device to counteract these energy pulses. Whatever it takes, we need to get our people back to normal." As Rodriguez nodded and hurried off to his task, Freeman turned back to the view screen, where the alien ships continued their silent vigil. In the eerie quiet of space, tension mounted as the Intrepid's crew waited for the next move in this high-stakes interstellar chess game. On the planet's surface, Dr. Rice and her team worked tirelessly to establish a secure perimeter around the ruins, fighting against both the malfunctioning alien technology and the powerful biochemical urges affecting their comrades. As the bioluminescent night deepened, the forest seemed to pulse with an ancient, inscrutable energy, holding the promise of both wondrous discovery and terrible danger. As the bioluminescent night faded into dawn, Captain Philip Freeman stood on the bridge of the UNS Intrepid, his eyes fixed on the console displaying the mysterious planet below. The eerie silence of the standoff with the unidentified vessels was broken only by the soft beeps and hums of the ship's systems. "Mr. Harper, status report on the away team," Freeman ordered, his voice tight with tension. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper's fingers flew across his console. "Dr. Rice reports progress, sir. They've developed a temporary treatment to stabilize the affected crew members, but it's not fully effective. Both humans and Vorta are still experiencing heightened pheromone production and increased sensitivity." Freeman nodded grimly. "And the alien security system?" "Chief Engineer Rodriguez has completed a prototype neutralization device. A team is preparing to enter the ruins now. As if on cue, the comm system crackled to life with Rodriguez's voice. Engineering to bridge. We're ready to proceed, Captain. Understood, Chief. Proceed with caution, Freeman replied. On the planet's surface, Rodriguez led his team towards the ancient structure. The dense forest around them pulsed with residual bioluminescence, casting an otherworldly glow on their faces. As they approached the vine-covered entrance, Rodriguez activated the prototype device. A low hum emanated from the device, growing in intensity as they stepped into the ruins. The air seemed to shimmer around them, the energy pulses visibly weakening. It's working, Rodriguez muttered, his eyes fixed on the readings. Let's move deeper. As they navigated the crumbling corridors, Ensign Chen stumbled, her hand brushing against a weathered panel. A deep rumble shook the ground, and the team watched in awe as a section of the floor slid away, revealing a hidden staircase. Captain, Rodriguez reported, his voice tinged with excitement, we've discovered an underground complex, requesting permission to investigate. Granted, Freeman's voice crackled through the comm, but maintain constant contact. The team descended into the darkness, their flashlights illuminating vast chambers filled with advanced technology and walls covered in intricate symbols. Rodriguez approached a central console, its surface still gleaming despite eons of neglect. This is incredible, he breathed, running his hand over the alien controls. The craftsmanship, the materials, this technology is beyond anything we've seen. As Rodriguez worked to decipher the alien systems, Lyra, the silver-eyed Vorta scientist, focused on the symbols adorning the walls. Her eyes widened as recognition dawned. These symbols, she called out, her voice echoing in the cavernous space. They're similar to ancient Vorta texts, but there's more. Another language intertwined with ours. It's as if our ancestors shared this outpost with another species. Back on the Intrepid, Freeman received the latest reports from the surface with growing concern. The implications of an ancient Vorta presence on the planet, coupled with the mysterious ships in orbit, presented a diplomatic minefield. Mr. Harper, he said, turning to his tactical officer, prepare a new communication attempt based on the symbols found in the ruins. Let's see if we can break this standoff. Harper nodded, his fingers dancing across the console as he compiled the data into a new transmission format. The bridge crew held their breath as the message was sent. Moments later, the view screen flickered to life. A series of complex patterns flashed across the screen, accompanied by a haunting, multi-tonal sound. "They're responding, sir," Harper exclaimed. As the crew worked to decode the alien transmission, activity on the planet's surface intensified. Dr. Rice and her medical team continued their efforts to stabilize the affected away team members, but the persistent influence of the alien energy pulses and heightened pheromones created an increasingly charged atmosphere. In a makeshift medical tent, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez found herself drawn to Lyra, the Vorta scientist. Their eyes met across the crowded space, an electric current of attraction passing between them. "Fascinating," Lyra murmured, her silver eyes wide with curiosity. "The human physiological response to attraction is so intense." Maria felt her cheeks flush. "It's not usually this strong. The alien influence is amplifying everything." As they worked side by side, their hands brushing occasionally, both found it increasingly difficult to maintain professional detachment. Similar scenes played out across the camp and aboard the Intrepid, as humans and Vorta grappled with newfound attractions and cultural taboos. Captain Freeman, recognizing the potential long-term consequences of these interactions, called an emergency meeting with Dr. Rice and the Vorta leaders. "We need a more permanent solution," he said, his voice firm. "These biological changes could have far-reaching implications for both our species." Dr. Rice nodded, her expression grave. "We're working on it, Captain. But the alien technology is unlike anything we've encountered. It's going to take time." As the meeting concluded, a priority message came through from the engineering team in the ruins. Lieutenant Commander Harper's voice filled the room, tight with excitement. "Captain, we've made a significant discovery. Several kilometers from our initial landing site, we've detected a massive energy signature. We found a hidden hangar containing derelict spacecraft. They match the design of the ships in orbit. Freeman's eyes widened. Good work, Harper. Secure the site and begin analysis immediately. As the day progressed, the combined efforts of human and Vorta scientists began to yield results. In the Intrepid's main laboratory, Fenris worked alongside human researchers, her silver eyes gleaming as she pored over the data from the ruins and derelict ships. This technology, she breathed, her voice filled with awe. It could revolutionize both our civilizations. The propulsion theories alone are centuries beyond our current understanding. The human scientist next to her nodded, his expression a mix of excitement and trepidation. But what about the original owners, the ones who left all this behind? As if in answer to his question, the ship's comm system crackled to life with Captain Freeman's voice. All senior staff report to the bridge immediately. When they arrived, Freeman's face was grim. We've partially decoded the alien transmission. It seems a representative of the unknown species is en route to the planet. A hush fell over the bridge as the implications sank in. The crew of the Intrepid, along with their Vorta guests, stood on the precipice of a first contact situation that could alter the course of galactic history. As preparations began for the arrival of the mysterious representative, the air thrummed with tension and possibility. The secrets of the planet, the future of human-Vorta relations, and the potential encounter with a highly advanced civilization all hung in the balance. In the ruins below, the ancient technology pulsed with renewed energy, as if sensing the approach of its long-absent creators. The stage was set for a meeting that would shape the destiny of all those aboard the Intrepid and beyond. The ancient technology pulsed with renewed energy, as if sensing the approach of its long-absent creators. Aboard the UNS Intrepid, Captain Philip Freeman's voice rang out over the ship-wide communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We are about to make first contact with an unknown species. Maintain alert status but present a diplomatic front. Senior staff, report to the bridge immediately. As the crew scrambled to their stations, a sleek vessel unlike any they had ever seen appeared on the display. Its hull shimmered with an iridescent glow as it effortlessly glided through the planet's atmosphere. My God, Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper breathed, his eyes wide. That technology, it's beyond anything we've encountered. The alien ship touched down near the ancient ruins, kicking up a swirl of dust and bioluminescent spores. Captain Freeman, Dr. Sarah Rice, and Fenris, along with a small security detail, made their way to the landing site. As they approached, a hatch on the vessel slid open silently. From within emerged a tall, ethereal being that seemed to shimmer in the planet's strange light. Its form was vaguely humanoid, but with elongated limbs and features that appeared to shift subtly as it moved. The being glided towards them, stopping a few meters away. When it spoke, its voice resonated in their minds rather than their ears. Greetings, travelers. I am Ambassador Zix of the Celestial Concordat. We welcome you to Nexus Prime. Captain Freeman stepped forward, his posture straight and his voice steady. I am Captain Philip Freeman of the United Nations ship Intrepid. We come in peace and with a desire for mutual understanding. Zix's form rippled, a gesture they would later learn indicated pleasure. Your arrival has awakened systems long dormant. We have much to discuss. As they conversed, Zix explained the history of Nexus Prime, a joint scientific outpost where Celestials and ancient Vorta conducted groundbreaking research on interspecies biology and cultural exchange. The energy pulses and heightened pheromone production you've experienced, Zix said, are unintended side effects of a project designed to foster understanding between our peoples. Fenris's silver eyes widened. You knew our ancestors? Zix turned to her, its form shifting to mirror some of her features. Indeed, the Vorta were our partners in this great endeavor. As a gesture of goodwill, Zix presented Captain Freeman and Fenris with a small crystalline device. This will safely neutralize the biological changes affecting your people. However, be aware that some effects may linger, particularly the increased sensitivity between your species. Dr. Rice accepted the device, her scientific curiosity hardly restrained. Thank you, Ambassador. We'll begin implementation immediately. While Dr. Rice worked with Vorta scientists to activate the celestial device, a group of affected human crew members and Vorta approached Captain Freeman. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez stood at the forefront, her hand intertwined with Lyra's. "Captain," Maria began, her voice steady but her eyes betraying her nervousness. Some of us, we'd like to request permission to maintain our heightened connections." Freeman's brow furrowed. "Lieutenant, are you certain? The long-term effects are unknown." Lyra stepped forward, her silver eyes meeting the captain's gaze. "We understand the risks, sir, but what we've experienced, it's more than just physical attraction. It's a deep, profound understanding of each other." The captain nodded slowly, aware of the potential diplomatic implications of their request. "I'll take your request under advisement. For now, let's focus on stabilizing everyone's condition." Meanwhile, in the underground complex, Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez and his team had gained access to the Celestial database. The information streaming across their screens was staggering. "Captain," Marcus called over the comm, his voice filled with awe. "The advancements here, propulsion theories, energy generation, medical technology, it's centuries beyond anything we've imagined." As the team worked, Ambassador Zix observed the ongoing interactions between humans and Vorta with growing interest. The being approached Captain Freeman, its form undulating with what seemed to be excitement. "Captain," Zix communicated, "the unexpected outcomes of our ancient experiment are fascinating. We propose a continuation of this research. In exchange for studying the evolving human-Vorta relations, we offer to share our advanced technology." Freeman's mind raced with the potential benefits and risks of such an arrangement. "Ambassador, your offer is generous. However, I'll need to consult with my senior staff and our Vorta guests before making any decisions." As discussions continued, a patrol led by Lieutenant Commander Harper made a startling discovery deep within the ruins. "Captain," Harper's voice crackled over the comm, "we've found a hidden chamber containing stasis pods. There are perfectly preserved specimens of ancient Vorta and early Celestials inside." The activation of the stasis chamber triggered an immediate response. The ground beneath their feet began to tremble, and alarms blared throughout the complex. "All personnel, evacuate immediately," Freeman ordered, his voice cutting through the chaos. "This is not a drill. Get to the surface now." As the evacuation commenced, a group of researchers, including Lyra and Lieutenant Rodriguez, found themselves cut off from the main exit. The tremors intensified, causing chunks of ancient ceiling to crash down around them. "Captain!" Maria's voice came through, filled with static. "We're trapped in Section 3B. The passage is blocked." Freeman turned to Ambassador Zix, desperation in his eyes. "Can you help us?" Zix's form pulsed with what seemed like regret. "I can assist in the rescue, Captain, but there is a cost. The failsafe was designed to prevent the premature release of potentially dangerous research. To save your people, we must destroy all evidence of the Celestial Vorta collaboration." The tremors grew stronger, and the distant sound of collapsing tunnels echoed through the complex. Captain Freeman stood at the precipice of a monumental decision. The fate of his crew, the future of human-Vorta relations, and the potential for revolutionary scientific advancement hung in the balance. As the ancient outpost continued to crumble around them, Freeman knew that every second counted. The weight of command had never felt heavier, as he prepared to make a choice that would alter the course of history. Captain Freeman's eyes darted between the frantic faces of his crew and the impassive form of Ambassador Zix. The tremors intensified, and the distant sound of collapsing tunnels grew louder. With a heavy heart, he made his decision. "Ambassador, we accept your offer. Please, help us save our people." Zix's form pulsed with acknowledgement. In an instant, a shimmering force field materialized around the crumbling ruins, stabilizing the immediate area. "Evacuate now," Freeman barked into his communicator. "All personnel, make your way to the surface immediately." The captain turned to his chief of security. "Organize search and rescue teams. Get our people out of there." As the evacuation commenced, Freeman's communicator crackled to life. "Captain!" It was Lieutenant Rodriguez's voice, filled with static and urgency. "We're approaching the main chamber, but the passage is blocked." Hold on, Lieutenant, Freeman replied, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. We're coming for you. With Zix's assistance, the rescue teams navigated the treacherous ruins. They found Rodriguez, Lyra, and the other trapped researchers huddled in a small alcove, protected from falling debris by a hastily erected force field. As the last of the survivors were pulled to safety, the ground beneath their feet began to shake violently. Massive fissures opened up, releasing plumes of superheated gas and magma. Captain, Chief Engineer Marcus Rodriguez's voice came through the comm. The planet's core is becoming unstable. We're detecting a chain reaction building. Freeman's face hardened. Understood. All personnel, prepare for immediate evacuation from the surface. Intrepid, ready all shuttles for emergency departure. Amidst the chaos, Fenris and a group of Vorta scientists worked feverishly to salvage what they could from the celestial database. They transferred data crystals and artifacts to waiting shuttles, their silver eyes reflecting the urgency of their task. As the last shuttle lifted off, the ancient outpost collapsed in on itself, burying the stasis pods in the vast trove of knowledge forever. The planet's surface roiled and cracked, the very ground seeming to come alive beneath them. Aboard the Intrepid, Captain Freeman watched the sensors with growing alarm. Helm, plot an immediate course out of the system. Maximum warp as soon as all ships are clear. Before they departed, Ambassador Zix approached the captain one last time. The being's form shimmered with what seemed like regret mixed with hope. Captain Freeman, as promised, here is the data crystal containing medical information to help manage the lingering effects of the pheromone changes. May it serve your people well. Freeman accepted the crystal with a nod of gratitude. Thank you, Ambassador. And what of you? Zix's form rippled. Our paths diverge here, but perhaps they will cross again. Farewell, humans and Vorta. May your journey be enlightening. With that, the celestial ship vanished into subspace, leaving the astonished crew of the Intrepid staring at empty space. Sir, the helmsman called out, all ships report ready for departure. Freeman snapped back to attention. Engage warp drive now! The Intrepid and its escort ships streaked away from the doomed planet, narrowly escaping the massive shockwave as Nexus Prime shattered behind them. In the following hours, as the ship resumed its course to the nearest human outpost, Freeman called an emergency meeting with his senior staff and Vorta representatives. Report, he said, his voice weary but determined. Dr. Sarah Rice stepped forward, her face a mixture of concern and fascination. The most severe biological alterations have been neutralized, Captain. However, both humans and Vorta retain an enhanced sensitivity to each other's pheromones. It's creating interesting challenges for maintaining professional relationships aboard the ship. Freeman nodded, then turned to his chief engineer. Marcus, what did we manage to salvage? Rodriguez's eyes lit up with excitement. Sir, the data we recovered is incomplete and heavily encrypted, but what we can access is remarkable. Propulsion theories, energy generation concepts, medical advancements. It's going to take years to fully understand it all, but the potential is staggering. As the meeting continued, Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez and Lyra stepped forward, their hands intertwined. Captain, Maria began, her voice steady but her eyes betraying her nervousness. Lyra and I have a proposal. We believe that a voluntary human-Vorta cultural exchange program could help us navigate these new connections we're experiencing. It could be a controlled way to explore our newfound understanding of each other. Freeman leaned back in his chair, considering the implications. After a moment, he nodded slowly. I'll approve it, under strict guidelines. Lieutenant Commander Harper, I want you to oversee this program. Ensure it doesn't compromise ship operations or security. As the meeting adjourned, Freeman felt the weight of command settle heavily on his shoulders. The Intrepid had become more than just a starship. It was now a crucible of interspecies cooperation and cultural exchange. In his ready room, as the stars streaked by outside his window, Freeman's computer chimed with an incoming transmission. The United Earth Command logo flashed on the screen, followed by a simple message. Captain Freeman, report immediately on the events at Nexus Prime and current status of human-Vorta relations. Priority 1. Freeman stared at the screen, the implications of their adventure beginning to dawn on him. Whatever happened next would reshape the future of both species and their place in the cosmos. With a deep breath, he began to compose his report, knowing that every word could change the course of history. Freeman's fingers hovered over the screen, the weight of his report pressing down on him. He took a deep breath, steadying himself, and began to type. As the days passed, the Intrepid continued its journey to the nearest human outpost. The aftermath of Nexus Prime lingered, shaping the interactions between the human crew and their Vorta guests in unexpected ways. Lieutenant Maria Rodriguez approached Captain Freeman in his ready room, her posture straight, but her eyes betraying a mix of excitement and trepidation. "Captain, I have a proposal," she said, handing him a datapad. "Lyra and I have been discussing the possibility of a cultural exchange program. We believe it could help us navigate these new connections we're experiencing." Freeman scrolled through the proposal, his brow furrowed in concentration. After a moment, he looked up. "This is ambitious, Lieutenant, but I see the potential benefits." "Very well, I'll approve it under strict guidelines." Within days, the program gained momentum. Humans and Vorta alike signed up, eager to explore their newfound understanding of each other. To accommodate this unprecedented situation, Freeman established a dedicated area on the ship, quickly dubbed Nexus Deck by the crew. In the medical bay, Dr. Sarah Rice hunched over her console, her eyes darting between multiple screens of data. The crystal provided by Ambassador Zix pulsed softly on the desk beside her. "Computer, run decryption algorithm Delta 7, she commanded, her voice tight with anticipation. The screen flickered and suddenly a wealth of information cascaded across it. Sarah's eyes widened. "Captain," she called over the comm, her voice trembling with excitement. "I've done it. I've decrypted a portion of the celestial data." In the following hours, Sarah pored over the information with a team of Vorta scientists. The data revealed advanced medical techniques for enhancing interspecies compatibility, including methods to safely modulate pheromone production and reception. Sarah's proposal to implement these techniques on a volunteer basis landed on Freeman's desk the next morning. After careful consideration and consultation with his senior staff, he gave his cautious approval. Word spread quickly through the ship. Volunteers from both species came forward, eager to participate in Dr. Rice's study. Among them were Maria and Lyra, their hands intertwined as they entered the medical bay. The first phase of the study produced results that left even Dr. Rice astounded. Participants reported enhanced empathic abilities, sensing each other's emotions with remarkable accuracy. In the ship's mess hall, Maria sat across from Lyra, their meals forgotten as they gazed at each other in wonder. "It's incredible," Maria whispered, her eyes glistening. "I can feel your excitement, your curiosity. It's like I'm seeing you for the first time." Lyra nodded, her silver eyes wide. "And I can sense your amazement, your joy. It's overwhelming, but in the most wonderful way." Similar scenes played out across the ship as human-Vorta pairs explored their newfound empathic connection. The revelations were often profound, sometimes shocking, as participants gained unprecedented insight into their partner's thoughts and feelings. Meanwhile, in engineering, Chief Marcus Rodriguez stood before a holographic display, his fingers dancing across the controls as he manipulated complex diagrams. "Captain," he called over the comm, "I think we've cracked it. These celestial propulsion theories, they're unlike anything we've ever seen. With your authorization, I'd like to begin construction on a prototype device." Freeman's voice came back, tinged with a mix of caution and excitement. "Proceed, Chief, but keep me updated on every step of the process." As work on the prototype began, strange occurrences started to ripple through the ship. Lieutenant Commander Jack Harper frowned at his security console, watching as reports of minor malfunctions and energy fluctuations trickled in. "Computer, triangulate the source of these anomalies," he ordered. The response came almost immediately. "Source located, Nexus Deck." Harper's investigation led him to a startling discovery. The combined biochemical changes in the human and Vorta participants, coupled with their enhanced empathic abilities, were generating a weak but detectable energy field. In the captain's ready room, Freeman listened intently as Harper delivered his report. His face grew grave as he considered the implications. Effective immediately, I'm ordering a temporary suspension of the cultural exchange program and Dr. Rice's study, Freeman declared, his voice heavy with reluctance. But even as the order went out, the energy field continued to grow. Systems across the ship experienced minor glitches, and an air of unease settled over the crew. It was Fenris who approached Freeman with an alternative perspective. The Vorta scientist's silver eyes gleamed with excitement as she spoke. Captain, I believe we may be witnessing the manifestation of a long-dormant ability shared by both our species, she explained. Ancient Vorta legends speak of a power born from deep connection and understanding. Perhaps, instead of suppressing this phenomenon, we should seek to understand and harness it. Freeman leaned back in his chair, his mind racing with the possibilities and potential risks. After a long moment, he nodded. Assemble a team, he ordered. Dr. Rice, Chief Rodriguez, yourself, and any other experts you deem necessary. Your mission is to investigate this energy field and develop a way to control it. As the specialized team began their work, the ship's long-range sensors suddenly lit up. Lieutenant Commander Harper's voice cut through the ambient noise on the bridge. Captain, we're detecting an approaching vessel. Origin unknown. Its technology. Sir, it's like nothing we've ever seen before. Freeman's posture stiffened as he rose from his chair. Red alert! All hands to battle stations. As klaxons blared throughout the ship, Freeman stared at the view screen, watching as a sleek alien vessel appeared on the horizon. In that moment, the fate of the Intrepid, its crew, and the future of human-Vorta relations hung in the balance. The captain's voice was steady as he gave his next order. Hail them! Hail them, Freeman ordered, his voice steady despite the tension palpable on the bridge. Before the communications officer could comply, a shimmering light materialized in the center of the bridge. The crew instinctively reached for their weapons, but Freeman raised a hand, signaling them to hold. The light coalesced into a familiar form. Ambassador Zix, his ethereal body pulsing with an otherworldly glow. Captain Freeman, the Celestial's voice resonated through the bridge. We meet again sooner than expected. Freeman stepped forward, his posture relaxed but alert. Ambassador Zix, I must admit, your method of communication is unorthodox. Zix's form rippled in what could have been interpreted as amusement. We have been monitoring your progress since Nexus Prime. Your handling of the situation has been most impressive. The captain's eyebrow arched. You've been watching us. Indeed, the rapid advancements in human-Vorta relations, the responsible use of salvage technology, it has exceeded our expectations. Freeman exchanged glances with his senior staff. Fenris, standing nearby, tilted her head in curiosity. Zix continued, We offer you an unprecedented opportunity, Captain, an invitation to visit our homeworld. A collective gasp rippled through the bridge. Freeman's mind raced with the implications. Your homeworld? I wasn't aware the Celestials had a fixed point of origin. There is much you do not know about us, Captain. This is an opportunity to change that. Freeman turned to his crew, noting their mix of excitement and apprehension. He locked eyes with Fenris, who gave a subtle nod. We accept your invitation, Ambassador, Freeman declared. Zix's form brightened. Excellent. Prepare yourselves. The view screen flickered to life, showing the celestial ship extending a gossamer-like tether of energy towards the Intrepid. Chief, Freeman called to Rodriguez, status of our systems? Rodriguez's fingers danced over his console. All systems nominal, Captain, but I'm detecting an unusual energy signature emanating from Nexus Deck. Before Freeman could respond, the ship lurched forward. Stars on the display blurred into streaks of light as the Intrepid was pulled into a subspace corridor, unlike anything they had encountered before. Sir, the helmsman reported, awe in his voice. Our speed, it's beyond our previous capabilities. The celestial tether is enhancing our propulsion somehow. Freeman noticed a soft glow permeating the bridge. He tapped his communicator. Dr. Rice, report. Sarah's voice came through, tinged with excitement. Captain, The human Vorta energy field has intensified. It's interfacing with the celestial technology, enhancing our journey. The journey lasted mere minutes, but to the crew, it felt like stepping through a doorway into another realm. When they emerged, a collective gasp echoed through the ship. Before them lay a world of impossible beauty. Massive cities floated in the sky, their architecture a blend of organic shapes and crystalline structures. A network of orbital stations and shipyards surrounded the planet, buzzing with activity. "Welcome," Zix's voice resonated through the ship, "to the heart of the celestial concordate." As the Intrepid approached the planet, a delegation led by Freeman and Fenris prepared to beam down. The transporter effect felt different, more like stepping through a curtain of light than the usual dematerialization. They found themselves in a grand council chamber, its walls seemingly made of living light. Beings of various forms, all sharing the celestial's ethereal quality, regarded them with interest. Zix gestured towards the assembled celestials. "The leaders of our concordate welcome you." A celestial of impressive stature stepped forward, its form a swirling vortex of starlight. "We have long observed your species," its voice echoed in their minds. "The events on Nexus Prime were the final test in our experiment." Freeman's brow furrowed. "Experiment?" "To assess the potential for human Vorta cooperation and advancement," another celestial explained. "You have exceeded our expectations." Fenris stepped forward, her silver eyes wide with wonder. "What does this mean for our people?" The lead celestial's form brightened. "We offer you membership in the Celestial Concordate, access to technology and knowledge beyond your current understanding, a chance to propel both your species into a new era of exploration." The human and Vorta delegates exchanged looks of amazement and trepidation. "There is, however, a condition," Zix interjected. "Humans and Vorta must continue to work together. Your newfound empathic abilities and combined strengths must be used in service of the Concordate as peacekeepers and explorers." Freeman absorbed the weight of the offer. "And the Intrepid?" "Would serve as the prototype for this new joint venture," Zix confirmed. As the implications sank in, Freeman turned to his crew and the Vorta representatives. Their faces showed a mix of excitement, uncertainty, and hope. "We need time to discuss this," Freeman said, his voice steady. The lead celestial nodded, its form rippling. "Of course, we await your decision." As the delegation huddled together, their voices a mix of whispers and excited exclamations, Freeman caught Fenris's eye. The Vorta scientist's expression mirrored his own, a blend of caution and thrilling possibility. Whatever their decision, Freeman knew that this moment would forever change the course of both their species. The rescue mission that had started it all had led them to the threshold of a new era, one filled with untold wonders and challenges. As discussions began in earnest, the captain allowed himself a moment to marvel at the journey that had brought them here, to the dawn of a new chapter in the story of humanity in the Vorta.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.